Hello, unplanned video, really quick. I got asked if I was a gender critical feminist, and I thought I should clarify. First of all, there has never been a term, apart from the term TERF, feminism is not a club that you kick people out of. If you're a feminist, you're gender critical. What's happening online at the moment is nothing to do with feminism. Look, when political media cultures want to deliver a policy reflex that's going to roll back every right that women had and safeguarding systems, that's not feminism, even if those women say that it is. When trans rights activists are commissioned because they are literally abusive males who will shut women up, that wasn't ever feminism. Trans rights activism was always a reflection of the political media culture on Twitter. In the process of the centre-left and the far-right reproducing that binary within the movement where women were forced to stand up across the country against when trans rights activism had pressed itself against safeguarding, women all over the country were forced to stand up to that, and we did. But within a week of the Gender Recognition Act review, the centre-left had reproduced a political spectrum that was about them and the far right. And this is where this label for gender-critical feminism has come from. I was targeted by a political media culture and trans rights activists for discussing safeguarding and the rule of law that already exists. The people that caused the problem in the first place then captured the movement because they thought there was benefit in it. I understand that book deals and all sorts have been dished out while they pat themselves on the back and declare this is their movement. That's what elite capture of social movements is. That's the way that Labour's business model has always worked. That's where trans rights activism came from in the first place. But my life was utterly destroyed by those women. And I paid a very, very heavy price for even associating with those women when we were forced to stand up against safeguarding, against political parties targeting women and making it unsafe to speak. I always said that the problem hadn't just come from, trans rights activism was following a model of activism that was well set down. That political spectrum reformed within that movement very quickly. No, I'm not a gender critical feminist. I'm an intelligent woman. Feminism means gender critical anyway, period. I wouldn't describe myself in such a ridiculous way, but I don't associate with the far-right trolls and the centre-left women who thought there was political capital and is all having to stand up to protect women's right to speak. As a consequence of that, I literally haven't been online for 2 years and I wasn't safe to speak. I was made unsafe in every way possible to punish me for discussing safeguarding when Labour wanted to subordinate that discussion. I'm currently doing a playlist that's about what broke Britain, and part of that discussion is discussing Labour's manufacturing of social movements to prevent people accessing democracy. For 10 years, while a policy reflex that killed 100,000 people happened, while the country was locked into Brexit and the same political media culture then turned on Jewish people, this is very serious. When the Green Party had 50,000 women targeted under the banner TERF, and, a house, when the Chalmers house was the site of a very serious crime and it was presented as just part of this Twitter nonsense, that was very, very serious. I've not been associated with anything to do with Twitter activism ever. I've never associated with that. I never did. I was targeted by a political party because I discussed safeguarding and the rule of law, and because I actually discussed their role in facilitating a policy reflex that threatened every single right that women had won in the 20th century. Those laws exist. This reproduction of a binary with the centre left and the far right where you have to say that you're a gender critical feminist, this is nonsense. I'm an intelligent woman, I would never ever use such a ridiculous term. No, I'm not a gender critical anything. Well, I am, because I'm a feminist by nature. Gender is the systems that actually subordinate women. So of course I'm critical of those. I'm a woman. You know, political media women using social movements to seek out vulnerable women to place themselves in competition with them and to prevent them accessing democracy was never feminism. Male pattern abusive behavior and stalking and targeting women was never feminism. You know, just like turning on Jewish people isn't socialism, and preventing women and preventing people discussing austerity because Labour wanted to kind of have those priorities. This was always Twitter nonsense. I've never gone anywhere near it. No, I'm not a gender critical feminist. I'm a feminist, which means I'm gender critical. But I discuss laws and systems that have existed for a very, very long time. Women stood up against that, and some elite women thought there was capital in that and demonstrated where trans rights activism had come from in the first place. But I don't go near those women, like I never did. Like, my life was utterly trashed by what was done to me after the Gender Recognition Act review. It was worth it to stand up for safeguarding. It was worth it to see so many people stand up for safeguarding. I knew that those kind of dynamics would reproduce in that social movement. That's the nature of a reflex. My thesis had already identified it. It's just unfortunate that the impact on me was so massive. But no, I'm not a gender critical. That's a ridiculous term. Don't be ridiculous. If you find yourself describing yourself as a gender critical feminist, ask yourself what you're actually saying, really.